Welcome to Shared Insights, the podcast from BA Insight. My name is Pete Wright, and I'm here again with our Chief Technology Officer, Jeff Fried. Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm enjoying the beginning of summer, Pete, and delightful to spend some time with you again.
The beginning of summer, Jeff, it went from 0 to 102 scheduled where I am in this part of the world. Our forecast calls for 102.
Sounds like a wonderful change of pace.
Yes, blissfully optimistic. We went from 85 one day to 55 the other day, so you got me beat. Oh, fair enough. I'll hang that on my wall. Today, we are going to be talking about ElasticSearch, and if you don't know about it, it is the fastest growing open source search technology, and it's about to unleash your data inside BA Insight. Jeff, let's start with an overview. What is ElasticSearch, and why is it important for us to investigate here?
Sure. Well, as you know, BA Insight is about all things search. And personally, I've been a search nerd for a long time. So ElasticSearch is an open source search stack that was initially started in 2008, built on top of a thing called Lucene. It's backed by a company, which is called Elastic, and it's been growing like crazy. A year ago, there were 20 million downloads, which is a lot. Now there's 50 million. So it's accelerating like crazy. And there are over 50,000 community members that are following the open source as I am. There's 500 meetups a year. So it's a very vibrant community and a very exciting one. If you're into search, you should know about ElasticSearch. That
it is fun for search nerds is one thing. Right? You and I have already talked about how much fun it is to explore fun new technologies. But there has to be a brilliant reason to make a new connection for BA Insight users.
There are lots of applications. Maybe I'll start with that. In the Elastic stack, there's a number of elements, including both Elasticsearch, a thing called Logstash, which is designed to bring log data from lots of machines, and a thing called Kibana, which is like a visualization dashboard. These can be used at massive scale for lots of applications. In fact, the top applications are things you might not recognize as search. It's for data analytics, looking at how your applications are running, etc. So it's if you're familiar with a company called Splunk, people don't think of it as a search company, but it's search technology applied to machine data. It's also used for embedded search. For example, Spotify uses Elasticsearch, and for enterprise search. If you are following BA Insight, you know that we're about making enterprise search and search-driven applications effective. So we've become an Elastic partner and built a complete enterprise search solution on top of Elasticsearch.
What does that look like for our users in terms of just, those who want to explore it? How does it work with BA Insight, and what does it mean for their investment in Microsoft's enterprise search? We've already talked about hybrid search, and can you talk a little bit about how these things work together and differently?
Absolutely. And I think if you think about ElasticSearch and SharePoint, sort of like the classic chocolate and peanut butter, they are really interesting. They're better together. And if you look at on BA Insight's website, we have a bainsight.com/Elasticsearch, whose theme is better together. So we see lots of people using both SharePoint and Elasticsearch. And if you're already using SharePoint, there's some new capabilities that are opened up. What are examples? Some of them are almost vertical specific. If you want to do what's called real-time indexing, bring in content and make it searchable immediately, which we see a lot with, for example, banks or financial services companies that want to take transactions and make them searchable. Mm-hmm. You would use Elasticsearch, because the search built into SharePoint will get you down to a few minutes of freshness, not sub-second. if you are interested in what's called geo-search, and as you can imagine, a lot of our oil and gas customers want to know where things are, mineral rights, etc. That's not a capability in SharePoint Search, but it's built into ElasticSearch. If you have what's called a pattern search, where you're looking for specific part number formats, or what's called regular expressions as a query, which we see in manufacturing, logistics, and research applications. Similarly, these are things you can do with ElasticSearch, but not with SharePoint Search.
This is one of those things that it seems like a regular theme for our conversations, Jeff, that either we're talking about, opening up new data sources to integrate with SharePoint, or in this case, being able to do vastly more with the data you already have. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's all about unlocking the content you already have, integrating it together into a unified view, and unleashing sort of the power of this very deep technology in a way that's natural to the users. So we have a product called the Federator, which lets us mix and match. And therefore, if you're using SharePoint Search and happy with what it's delivering today, ain't broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
But you can add on some of these things as, I'll say, specialist capabilities, that you'll have a department or a group that really cares about the capabilities you can do with Elasticsearch and expose those together in a SharePoint UI. If you're using Elasticsearch, then there's a complete enterprise search solution. As I mentioned, Elasticsearch is used for data analytics, embedded search, and enterprise search. But it's really been a developer community more than anything else. And there aren't the elements that you really need for enterprise search. For example, connectors. There's no connectors built into Elasticsearch. There's no item level security and no UI that's administratable. So that's what we bring to Elasticsearch. Whether you're coming from having SharePoint Search, and wanting to be able to do some sophisticated capabilities that are beyond what you can do today, or whether you're coming from using Elasticsearch for some of these data science applications and wanting to expand it into enterprise search, either way, you've got a better together solution.
It sounds very much like if you've been using Elasticsearch all along, then it's time for you to think about integrating BA Insight. It sounds like BA Insight is going to make Elasticsearch that much better.
Certainly, I believe so. Now, I'm very aware that I'm in the middle of this. I've been playing with Elasticsearch for about 2 years, and as a company, BA Insight bet on it completely a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we now have our whole product portfolio working on it in a variety of ways. And since we released this capability, I've had a flood of interest. Now, that's what we're looking for. So you see what you're looking for.
Right.
It's in the form of people who are interested in Elasticsearch because it's open source and they have a feeling that they can control it. They're not worried about whether a particular vendor is going to be around or not. And search is a space where there have been a lot of acquisitions and a lot of, I'll say, dead bodies by the road. I've been surprised at the number of people who are looking to get off of the Google Search Appliance, because Google discontinued the Google Search Appliance about 3 months ago. And BA Insight has a solution for that, which lets people use either SharePoint Search or Elasticsearch or a combination. I've been surprised at how many people are looking at saying, okay, I'm going to move from the GSA and I'm interested in doing that with Elasticsearch. The number of folks that have data sciences initiative, you can imagine with 50 million downloads of the Elasticsearch software, it's usually being used in some science project somewhere in your company. Sometimes it's for security and compliance scanning. Sometimes it's for application management. Those folks can now extend to an enterprise-wide portal using SharePoint or to enterprise search. So it's really those three modalities that I see people coming to us for.
So it sort of begs the question. We've talked. We teased a little bit at this idea of Microsoft Enterprise Search a few minutes ago. But what does it mean for Microsoft? For your impression of Microsoft Enterprise Search, is it changing focus? We see Google getting out of the GSA. What are we looking at in terms of the search ecosystem with such a vibrant ElasticSearch economy?
It's subtle today. But if you look at the tea leaves, very big as you go into the future. Mm-hmm. Already, Microsoft, Google, and open source commoditized the search industry. They brought the price of high-end search down by a factor of almost 40. What used to cost $2 million only a decade ago is under $100,000 in licenses today. Or, open source isn't free, but there's support subscriptions. Mm-hmm. You can view that as being, in your control. So there's a commoditization and therefore a spread of search applications just from that. Microsoft's emphasis on enterprise search has been shifting towards what's called the Office Graph. It's a facility that uses graph connections built into Office 365. So there's still more people working on enterprise search at Microsoft than anywhere else on the planet, and a big investment, but the majority of that is focused on the Microsoft Cloud and the Office Graph. And therefore, some of these sophisticated features that people might look for in high-end search aren't going to be covered by Microsoft, and they will be covered by open source. So I'm particularly excited about that. And if you are looking at sort of the sophisticated features, extensibility and control, I definitely recommend looking at Elasticsearch. With the resurgence in SharePoint, there's been a whole nother podcast we could do on something called the future of SharePoint. It's a big announcement by Microsoft on May 4th, less than a month ago. There's a resurgence in investment in SharePoint, and that puts additional resources on search and the Office Graph underlying everything. So I have a good friend, Mikkel Svensson, who's written several times that Microsoft Enterprise Search is dead. I don't think that's the case by a long shot. I just think that the emphasis is on the Office Graph.
Well, in terms of controlling what you or investing in what you control, that seems like certainly a smart decision on Microsoft's part. And it seems like relinquishing a little bit of this control in terms of opening up and making more extensible the ability to integrate Elasticsearch and other open source tools is a key part of SharePoint's future. Is dependence on SharePoint an issue at all for Elasticsearch shops?
That's a good question. I'd say it depends. Clearly, where we are today with BA Insight is a really strong integration and connection between Elasticsearch and SharePoint. That depends on SharePoint as the UI and as an administration center. It turns out the majority of enterprises, the vast majority, 90+%, have SharePoint, are using it, have someone who knows how to administer it, whether it's the same group that's using Elasticsearch or not. So if you need some capability today, BA Insight will introduce SharePoint servers. They may be what's called Foundation, a free tier, so not a license cost, but it is more moving parts and a stack to learn if you are not familiar with SharePoint. So I do get this question from Elasticsearch folks that are deep in the Elasticsearch stack, especially folks coming from a Linux and Java world. And we're working on removing dependencies so that you can have a pure Elastic solution as well as an Elastic SharePoint solution. So watch this space.
Okay. All right. I'll put up a sign.
Good.
The next question that we've been talking about is my understanding is, thanks to the BA Insight tools, that ultimately the search application becomes sort of transparent for users. But in terms of development, where are you guiding clients to think about using Elasticsearch, and where should they be using SharePoint Search?
Well, I have I'll say a basic philosophy that is search engine agnostic. I don't believe that there's a single thing that's best for everything. I think that as you see from BA Insight, we now also support Recommind, the Google Search appliance. Both Elasticsearch and SharePoint Search are fully capable for the vast majority of users and the vast majority of use cases. So it's really not which is better. It's what are you familiar with? What do you know how to administer? What do you already own? And then how to apply them. Now, I did do a detailed feature comparison between SharePoint Search and Elasticsearch that I'll be publishing on our blog as sort of as a series, because the devil's in the detail. There are some things that are better in SharePoint Search. For example, the people search in SharePoint, because it's well integrated into profiles. It has things like phonetic search and nicknames built in, is really strong. And there are things that are better in Elasticsearch. The specialty features that I mentioned, query expressiveness. What's an example of that? You can do a prefix wildcard in Elasticsearch. Show me anything that is a star glutamate to get, is often found in chemical or pharmaceutical companies. So you can do really sophisticated queries better in Elasticsearch. SharePoint has a big edge when it comes to administration, because Microsoft's focus has been making SharePoint Search fit for the masses. You don't have to be a developer. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to administer it. But that's part of what we bring, BA Insight brings to Elastic with our products and our integration.
Yeah, we wouldn't be doing this podcast if there wasn't such an investment there.
Yes, right? I guess that's true.
Well, so let's talk about how you're rolling this out for folks and how they can learn more about the Elasticsearch integration. How are you working with Elastic to help spread the word about this fantastic new tool set?
We're working with Elastic, the company, on a number of fronts. We're doing a series of seminars. These are breakfast seminars. I always make sure there's good food. Did one in New York the week before last, one in Boston last month. And these are really educational, where we're inviting people from both communities, SharePoint community and Elastic community, and often they are from the same company but meeting each other for the first time. It's a lot of fun. We've also been, of course, building our products with Elastic. We've incorporated the Elastic Stack inside our own Smart Analytics product and working to sort of triangulate with Microsoft. So, for example, there is now an Azure template for Elasticsearch, which we use and we recommend as a starting point for deploying our solution. If you want to get started, you can get educated by looking at the BA Insight website, looking at Elastic's website, which, by the way, is elastic.co, not .com. .com is a lending service. You can then download Elasticsearch and install it, or use this Azure template. And if you have development chops, I'd recommend that. If you are not a developer, then I'd say call for help. You can ask BA Insight for help. You could ask us for a POC, and that gets you going with some very interesting capabilities, either on-prem or in the cloud.
What is the overall investment in time? Let's say a company comes to you and says, "We want to do this. We want to get up and running. We want to move forward immediately." Zero to implementation. What do you think it takes?
Well, I'd still recommend doing things in steps, rapid, iterative phases, and it probably is a 1 or 2 week getting your feet wet to download, install, get things running, and have a feeling for what the technology and stack is. We've done now a beginning to live project in 2 months, and that's really gated more by the people factor, the change management, and making sure that you're checking out the results as you would with any project, but especially a search project.
That still feels aggressive to me. 1 to 2 months seems really excitingly reasonable. How about that?
Yes. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking about that project, I wouldn't set that expectation with your management, but you can move pretty fast with this stuff. Both because Insight, we've put a lot into making it sort of plug and play, and we're very excited about working with folks that want to get going, and because Elastic as a company is innovating very quickly and they're great to work with. So it's not just for developers anymore because it's open source. If you are in IT and don't want to write code but want to use that, that's why we're here to help.
The resources are certainly rich, and we will put all those links, including some new, I believe you're working on a blog post with these the detailed feature comparisons. We will put all the links to that in the show notes. If you're on your mobile app listening to this podcast, just scroll down in the show notes. The links will be active right there for you. You can jump to them right on your phone or tablet. This is terrific, great innovation, Jeff. Thank you so much for joining me and joining us to share the news.
It's a pleasure. And for all you listeners, thank you for your time, and check this stuff out. Its search is really vibrant, and this is a very exciting time.
Thank you, everybody, for downloading the show and listening. Don't forget, you can listen to the show anytime right over at bainsight.com, or you can subscribe for free in the podcast app of your choice. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll catch you next time on Shared Insight, the podcast from BA Insight.